Hi, you're very welcome back. I find that when I listen to the radio or read the paper and that I'm trying to inform myself about matters of current interest, that you only get a very shallow description of the real subject. You can't get your head around it because you'll never get the real deep information. My idea in these clips here is to show you exactly how these things work and to show them working in practice, so nobody can say that I'm wrong on this. There may be minor errors in my presentation, and I'll try to rectify these as I go ahead. We're going to look at transformers. Now, we've already looked at the way power is generated, but we're going to look at transformers in this demo, and also how it developed and how science and technology and science and politics can sometimes be at odds, and see if it has any lessons for us in the present green energy euphoria that's out there, and how it relates to wind power. So this guy here is down at a tank, a 1,000-litre tank, let's say, and he has a pump, and he's pumping water up through a pipe to another 1,000-litre tank up at the top. And the pipe connecting the two tanks will be of a certain size, and assuming he pumps at the same speed and all, then the speed of the water up the pipe multiplied by the volume, that's the square area, or the amount of, we'll say, the litres of water that pass in a given time, gives you a measure of work done, and that's measured in watt and sometimes horsepower in some instances. The two are the same idea, but a watt is therefore the measurement, the length of time. A watt is the unit of power, and it's by the hour to give it an actual quantity. So a watt hour, just like a kilowatt hour in electricity, but it can relate to anything. It can be your lawnmower, it can be a diesel engine, it can be a water wheel, it can be anything. Now, in the previous example, if the pipe, let's say, is 20 square centimeters and the water is moving at 1 miles per hour, and you reduce that pipe down to 10 square centimeters cross section, the water will have to increase to 2 miles per hour, because it has to move the same volume, but it has a smaller pipe. And here's an example here. You have the water coming along at 1 miles per hour in this big pipe, the 20 square centimeter, and then it's reduced down to half that, and therefore the speed increases, but also the pressure increases, and then when it comes back to here, it decreases back down to where it was originally. If a little hole occurred in the pipe here, a little nozzle, the water would squirt up a certain distance, and that will be a lot higher than in this case where the pressure is less. So it's really a measure of intensity. So it's speed and pressure that affected the volume of the water and the size of the pipe, which affect the amount of water that goes up in the pipe. Now, electric current experiences resistance, and this is a very important point. Electricity would be little use to us without resistance, but on the other hand, when we're transmitting it over long distances, it wastes the power. So if you take the previous example I gave you in my little coil here that you can see, if, for example, there's 10 watts produced here in this coil, and at the bulb end there's only 5 watts, where did the difference go? And it went in the conducting cables. So it goes in the form of heat, and that's resistance. It's good and it's always, but it's bad in the wrong place, as it were. So now we're going to look at the pressure measure for electric power, and that's a volt. This battery here, I have a 12-volt battery here, you can see it there. That is a 12-volt battery, that's 12 volt. So the intensity of the current that battery produces is 12 volt. And you can go any height in volts or as low as you like. That's the pressure or the intensity of the current. The amp is the volume. The amp is the volume. So this would be the pressure of the water or the speed of the water, and this would be the width of the pipe or the amount of water that flows at a given time, or the actual work or value of the work done. So volt by amps gives you watt. In other words, the pressure of or intensity of the current multiplied by its quantity gives you the work it will do in watts. Okay. Now a high voltage will give you low resistance. It's because of the speed or the pressure. It overcomes resistance. You can drive high voltage through a thin pipe, let's say the size of this nail here, wire nail, and it doesn't lose much resistance through heat, whereas for a lower voltage you might need a wire, sorry if I said pipe, excuse me, a wire the size of this, so that by increasing the voltage you can put more, you reduce the amps and it'll run through the thinner wire. So high voltage means low resistance and high amps means high resistance. Okay, so high amps is very good for doing work and high voltage is very good for transmission. Transformer, it changes the voltage, that's the pressure and intensity, and it also changes the volume. But highly importantly, it does not change the watts, it doesn't change the work done. You can neither increase or reduce the energy, actual full energy, by a transformer. Now the way a transformer works is two coils, and in this example here, this is one that just out of a solenoid of a car, and there is a wrapping on it here. There's about 500 windings on this. If you look in there, you can just see that the copper wires in there, insulated copper wires, right? That, and there's a hole inside in that. You see there. So this then is the secondary. That early one is the primary, and this is the one I'm using. You saw this before. So that's the secondary coil, about 250, 300 wires on it. So in your transformer, you have a primary coil. Let's say the number on this coil is 4. In reality, it'd be 4,000, and this one's 4. There's no change whatsoever. Now, so the number of turns on the primary and secondary affect how how it changes the voltage and the amps. If this were double this one, then the voltage would double and the amps would halve. You still have the same volts. So as an example here, we have a coil like the one I've shown you with 500 turns, and we have a secondary with 300 turns, and the voltage in is 50 volts, and the voltage out therefore will be 300 over 500, 30 out. So you multiply the input by the turns on the secondary over the turns on the primary, and you get the voltage out. So the voltage in is 50 volts at 15 amps, we'll say, given 750 watts. So the voltage out then has gone up to 30, and as the wattage is the same, the amperage out is 25 amps. The amps goes up, the volts goes down. In other words, the pressure, the intensity goes down, the quantity goes up, but the work done, the wattage, is still 750. I think you can see that there. Okay, so you see that important point. So how do you apply this? We take a power station. So in this particular power station here, power is being produced. So you want lowish volts where people are and where the equipment is being used. So the power station produces it at a lowish voltage, whatever, and a very, very, very high amp, because there's a lot of potential power there. So it puts it in to a small number of turns and takes the secondary coil with a large number of turns. And the result is that the voltage is increased greatly. And that's brought out then through the power lines out to the end user, and the process is reversed, bringing down the voltage to a sensible level and a safer level, and bringing up the amperage where you can use it in your washing machine or cooking or whatever. So you see how the importance of being able to change these values. Now I asked you there, I asked you in the last clip, I think, to name a person who was synonymous with our present world electrical distribution system and all the things that are associated with it. And I presume you said Thomas Edison. Maybe you did, or maybe you didn't. He was born in 1847 in America and he died in 1931. And at that time, it wasn't just his brainchild. The conventional wisdom was to produce current in a dynamo. That's a direct current, rather than an alternator. Now, just to show you the alternator has its coils around the edge usually, and it's driven by a magnetic revolving rotor inside, and the power is taken off here on the outlet. But a dynamo, on the other hand, has field coils, and there's one there. I think you can see it, and there's the other there. I think they're fairly clear, and they produce a magnetic field around the outside. Another example of it here is this one here. There it's there, a big dynamo there, and you see the way the hole for the thing. And a very important point to look on this one is the brushes. Right, now I'll mention those again. See them there? They go inside, inside against the commutator. There's the two brushes there. So the commutator then it's like this. It spins round, so the power is taken off on the rotor rather than in the stator as in an alternator. And on the same shaft, this is an old worn out one, and it's degraded, and that's why, because you can see it better. See the way the commutator is on the same, it goes round with it, but it's a separate item. So these things go round, pick up the power by inductance, and then the power is fed by wires over here to the commutator, and each segment of this commutator is individual, separated electrically. It's on a kind of a Bakelite core. These are all separate. So the power goes in here, and it also comes in, let's say the red one, let's say, is against the north magnet, and the blue one is against the opposite side, is the south magnet. So it's going around like this, you see them there going around. But the brush and the brushes and the commutator go round in common. So there's a rough example of how they're going around there, and the brush then rubs against it like that. You see that? Now, this equipment's old and rusty, so it dirties the hands, but it's good to see it. So that's the idea there. So there's a very good description of how a dynamo works, or a direct current generator, that sometimes call them, on how stuff works on the internet. So the direct current is like this. It has no flux, whereas the AC current has a flux. And we're going to do our little demonstration here. So I have my battery, you've seen that, and we're going to take our little transformer. So as I said, a transformer is basically two coils. We're going to put this one in here, and if I connect it, if I connect the wires, now I'm going to do it, sorry, I might just put out a light. Now I'm going to do it. If I connect the wires, the coil will quickly heat up, and I'll feel the magnetic, you'll see it jumping with the magnetism. So it's there, very strong magnetic field there, but no bulb is on. Again, note it, no, the bulb is not lighting. You see the whole thing there in my hand? Watch it again. No light. Now, that's because the current is not fluxed. So we're going to now spark this, or break the contact. I'm away from the battery, so it's safe. You shouldn't have sparks near a battery. It can explode. So now, against my black jumper. Now you see what happens. As I break the contact, the current rises and falls, and the bulb lights. Okay, so that proves the point about direct currents. Okay, the next little thing I have here is you never use mains current. You never use mains current directly. This is a quite safe transformer for a child's train set that I retrieved from the local skip that was being dumped, but it has all the CE marks, and it's quite safe, and it says here 9 volts alternating current 1 amp, so it's very, very safe. I'm going to plug it into the mains. So we're going to check the mains out and see what sort of current is going around there, and as I do, connect it to the And you need a lot. You need 3 hands for this. So I'm going to connect it. Now there it's sparking, and now we have our alternating current flowing through the and we'll put in this. Sorry, I should have a current there. Just to check it now. Oh. Yeah, bad connection. So now that's it. It's just about a bad connection. Now, as I insert the secondary coil into the magnetic, the fluxing magnetic field, the bulb comes on, and the bulb stays on. See that? You see how its intensity varies as I move the coil in now. That's the process of induction, and it's the very same as works in a generator. And that proves that the mains current coming from the ESB in this house, and your house as well, is alternating current at 50 Hertz. Right. So this is the problem that Edison had, and he asked Nikola Tesla to improve it. So you see that there. I think it proves the point. Now, just another little thing we may be able to do here, as a matter of interest when we're at it. If I bring this, if I bring the camera now, again I say I cannot pause this camera, so I'm going to just try this here and bring the camera up to it and zoom it in a little bit. Okay, I don't know, is it zooming as good as it should? Anyway, I don't think it's zooming. So now I'm going to put this magnet up against the nail. This is just a nail, and as I bring the magnet into it, you can hear it hum. But I want to see, can I amplify the sound against the wood so you can hear the magnetic field. I hope you can hear that. I don't want to disturb the camera too much. I hope you can hear that. And sorry for little hitches that occur there. As I say, it's a nuisance that you can't really pause this particular camera. That's something to look for in a if you're ever buying one, I think, anyway. But at least it proves that there's no magician here. So now, thanks for that. Now we have the direct current. Sorry, put on the light. We have the direct current with no flux, and we have the AC current with flux, and that flux then drives the transformer. Now, Nikola Tesla, he was born of Serbian origin in present-day Croatia in 1856, and he died in New York in 1943. And he came to the USA in 1884, and he was the pioneer of AC currents, although they were around before his time. And this book here on him by Thomas Comfort Martin was written in 1884. You know, showing that he even then he was very much on his game. So he came there anyway. And one of the things that Edison did was asked him to improve his dynamo, and they agreed a deal for a price if he did it. And Edison reneged on it. Edison broke his word, and Tesla took it very bad. And indeed, Tesla tried to negotiate and asked for a rise of pay from $18 a week to $25, and Edison wouldn't pay for it. But at the end of his life, Edison did agree that Tesla was right. So that was all right. The battle of the currents took place, And Tesla signed up with a man called George Westinghouse. And George maintained you needed the alternating current, and Tesla had actually a model of it built, and he had to work as a labourer. I'll show you, such a brainy man. He had to work as a labourer to feed himself while he was developing this system. One of the opponents, the things that there were opponents of AC was said it was dangerous, and which it wasn't any more dangerous than DC, of course. But the point I make about the politics is that the establishment, the finance, and all of those, and the municipal authorities, and those who made the political decisions, they all sided with Edison. And they sided with him for years and years, probably about 12 years. And it has a certain application to today's chat about renewable energy and expanding grids and spending billions on all this, and people trying to build empires and money trying to stop other ideas getting in, and media and everything. And I think it's a poignant example. Under Edison's plan, you needed a power station every 2 miles because the resistance in the wires, even with any even with direct current that was produced in his dynamos, and even with increasing it, the resistance was a huge problem because you couldn't get the voltage up, and when you got it up, you couldn't get it back down, even you did at the end user. So you couldn't let 5,000 volts into a person's home. Then the potential of the waterfalls at Niagara in upstate New York was realised, and someone said, why can't we bring this power down to New York City? And of course they needed transformers to do that, and that's how Tesla actually won the battle. So we see there that the media and the public and some sectors of the public were led along, but the public were misinformed, the very same as today. They're misinformed about all this green energy, and particularly wind energy. My campaign here and doing this is to try and inform you through the most direct media that's available today. So science was on Tesla's side, that's the point. And as someone said about wind energy, don't be politically correct, be scientifically correct. And it applies again. So science was on Tesla's side. And the battle was won by alternating current. And it raged for years, 10 or 12 years, up to about 1897 or around that. Now I just want to point out that one of the failures of AC current is that there's no current flowing on this. This is the wave of it, just here. And another little problem is that in addition to the very useful flux magnetic field, which by the way, it's described since 1960, the unit is described as a Tesla. That's the flux magnetic field. And it also induces capacitance in cables, and particularly if they're under water, under sea. And there's problems with putting very high voltage alternating currents underwater, underground, and that. And generally speaking, there's big loss. There can be sizable losses. Now, it's not a real problem in ordinary transmission lines, but it can be in big transmission lines. So what they do there is they rectify it using valves, electronic valves. They rectify the high voltage, having stepped it up to direct current. High voltage DC, you'll often see it there, and I believe that the present interconnector between Wales and the east coast of Ireland is high voltage DC. And when it arrives the other side, it's transferred back to AC for distribution through transformers using the line voltage of the receiving customer. And one of the advantages of this too is if you had 50 hertz in Britain, and let's say you had 60 hertz in another country, you can convert this power back. Now there are substantial losses, and this is used to bring the frequency of windmills, some of them, into line. And it must be remembered there are substantial losses in this, but it still can be done, and is done in some cases, because you miss out. I might just show you again. You improve the fact that with your AC, you have to have the wire strong enough, or the cable, to cater for this little piece. Whereas the AC voltage is really a mean voltage or an average voltage between here and here. You still have to have your cables large enough to carry the outliers here, the excesses. Whereas with DC, you don't need that. You can put more current through the same cables. So anyway, that's just in case you'd be caught out. Somebody might prove that the DC is used. But it doesn't still matter. You must bring it up and down in a transformer using alternating current. Now, as I said, the magnetic flux field B, this is a density of magnetic flux, is now called the Tesla. It's just a measure of the flux in a magnetic field. And that's basically that. So thank you very much for that, and that's just to give you a bit of a background. In the next one, we're going to just take a little look at one more, and this is the last practical demonstration. Tesla saw a problem and so did Edison, in using direct current for motors, etc., and conveying large quantities of current at that time. And we'll see how Tesla figured it out and was able to think outside the ordinary in the next clip. So we'll see you then for 1C. Thank you very much.